brand. His original ranges are deeply rooted in the culture of his tribe. His work is beautiful, trendy, and ethical, and he's fantastically talented. I'm going to give it a go. He's come all the way from the Cape, Laduma Ngxokolo.
Good morning, everyone. I am Laduma Ngxokolo from South Africa. Today I'll be sharing a story about my journey into knitwear design, how I designed a collection of Xhosa-inspired knitwear for Xhosa initiates in the Eastern Cape. I come from the Xhosa culture, specifically from the Mbondo clan. I initiated the project at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in 2010. Basically, my vision was to actually find a solution for these Xhosa initiates to sort of change the way that they dressed, because it felt awkward for me when I was an initiate. We had to dress in a way which didn't have any resemblance to the culture that we practice, which is made me feel a bit awkward. So I'll be showing you later images of how Xhosa initiates currently dress. I was raised by a single mother who was very creative, who had a good imagination. She was an entrepreneur. At that time when I was young, I had no idea what is an entrepreneur. I used to ask her, what is that? And she used to answer and say, give us definitions which were quite different. Now I understand, now that I'm an entrepreneur. And she was a very creative person. She taught us how to crochet, how to make beadwork, how to knit. My sister as well, who's here today, she was taught by a knit mother as well. And we ended up becoming her employee and started making beadwork, crochet products that she sold at curio stores in South Africa. My mother actually, we grew up in a home, we didn't have a television set. Until this other time, when me and my 3 other siblings joined high school, and we decided to go hunting for a cheap television. And I was 16 years old at the time, because in high school we actually were left out from other kids when they spoke about TV programs, because we couldn't relate to the subjects. So we told our mother about the issue, and we decided to go to a second-hand store to buy a television set. But the whole idea changed when we got there. Once she noticed that there was a hand knitting machine, which was about 20 times cheaper than the retail price. So that was the most disappointing day of my life. We went back home with a hand knitting machine that I've never seen before in my life. But it was quite fascinating to actually help her build it up, because I'm a technical person and I love design as well. So I decided, okay, I'll give it a try and help her out. And that was my beginning of my journey into knitwear design. Today I'll be sharing my inspiration, the concept behind my work, and I'll show you a few pieces of the work that I'm doing, and I will share how people relate to the work that I do, and share a little bit of my vision of my knitwear brand. Xhosa people are my main inspiration for my knitwear brand. As you might know, Xhosa people are majorly settled in the Eastern Cape. They originally, most of the population of the Xhosa people are in the Transkei. They are the second biggest population in South Africa after the Zulu people, and there's about 8 million Xhosa people in South Africa. I live in Port Elizabeth, which is on the lower tip of South Africa. It's quite a small, it's the smallest city of South Africa, and it has quite amazing inspiration that people underlook, which I later used for my knitwear. Xhosa people used to dress in beadwork which were extravagant. They loved color. And I did a little bit of research while doing my project at the university, and because I had to find inspiration for my knitwear, because I had to get something which was quite unique and actually use it and fuse it within the knitwear, and then propose it to the university and hear what they had to say. Xhosa people have been practicing rituals and customs for centuries, but none of those customs are actually written down. So we can actually go back and say that, okay, when we have to do that type of ritual, we're going to take the ingredients and do step 1 and step 2. We have to rely on the elders' knowledge. One of the rituals which is compulsory in the Xhosa heritage is manhood initiation. Traditionally, we go for initiation between age 18 and 25. The government changed it to 18 because there is a big issue, more especially in the rural areas where young boys who are as young as 14 decide to go for manhood initiation, and some of them die, but the chiefs of the villages are trying to resolve that issue. I hope they do, because we have a big crisis. Xhosa initiates, before they go to the circumcision school, they have to give away all the clothing as a sign of the end of their boyhood. They have to go through the transition, which is about a month now. It used to be 6 months back in the days. We sit in the initiation school and get visits from elders who teach us manhood protocol, who actually tell us that where we come from, who were the kings within our clan, and they give us advice. Once we get married, this is how customs and rituals should be done. And after the process, when we return home, the whole community gathers up, and we get gifts from the community, and they celebrate for a day, and some bring a lot of beer, homemade beer, and some give brandy. It's an awesome experience, which I got to experience a few times. I don't feel that comfortable in the celebration because things get tangled up. This is how Xhosa initiates are currently dressing after they return from the initiation school. For me, the dress style sort of looks like very English. For me, I didn't actually feel comfortable in those clothes. I felt that something needed to be done. As a person who has experience in knitwear, design, and knitting, I sort of felt that there could be something that I could change a bit, and then propose it to the Xhosa initiates, and perhaps hear what they have to say. After the Xhosa initiates dress up in the jackets and the hunter caps, they take off the jacket maybe 3 months after they wear the attire and wear knitwear. And actually parents buy them the clothes because they go for premium quality clothes, because they want the clothes to actually at least last until the boys get married, so that there wouldn't be a financial burden. So they seek for some of the best brands, which are Pring Ross Scotland, Lion Scots, which are very dominant in South Africa. And there isn't an alternative brand that initiates can actually choose and say, okay, this has some sort of cultural resemblance. I will buy it because it relates to the aesthetics of the culture. One of our icons, Nelson Mandela, was initiated at age 16. I just read his book, Long Walk to Freedom, and I quote from his, one of his chapters. He said that he felt very happy and fulfilled taking part in his customs and ready to make a transition from boyhood to manhood. I personally think that the culture has actually done a part of building his character. For instance, the endurance. Endurance is not as easy as it sounds, but once you're in that process, even in the initiation school, when you have to endure for a week, you have to sit without, you have to stay there without water and no medical treatment. It's a hard process, but we apply that in life. When we go through hardships, we actually recall those moments, and actually it helps us go through a lot of things. After, during my research, I had to actually make the network myself. And as part of the curriculum of my course, we had to enter an international competition. So I had to identify raw material and make the actual garment. And I felt fortunate that I was sitting in I felt that I was in the right city, because Port Elizabeth, where I come from, it has the biggest mohair industry in the world, and they have the biggest wool industry in Africa. So there's a lot of wool brokers in the city, and at that time I was looking for funding to actually fund my project, because I couldn't get any manufacturers to give them my design and get them to manufacture my design. So I had to knit the garments myself and get a dyer to actually dye the colors that I chose for my knitwear. And I fortunately got a sponsor, a bursary from Mohair South Africa and Claypool South Africa, and bought a knitting machine, and I had to learn how to do jacket patterns, and fortunately I was able to do it for the competition. The Society of Dyers and Colorists competition that I entered, the brief was to design something that had emphasis on color, use color in a creative and imaginative way, and to produce a truly distinctive pieces of textile or fashion, and explore enormous opportunities of color to communicate difference and individuality, incorporate an element of social responsibility into approach and final design application. I had a deep thought about this brief, because it sort of related to my school project, and it sort of helped me walk my journey, because I wanted to meet most of those criteria so that I hit the nail on the head. During the 2010 Soccer World Cup, fortunately, there was a lot of buzz, a lot of energy going on, and there were a lot of exhibitions in South Africa. And one of the museums in Port Elizabeth had an exhibition of traditional Xhosa beadwork. And one of my lecturers suggested that I go there to see the beadwork, and perhaps I might find inspiration from there. So I decided to go there with a photographer, and I went to the back offices and found astonishing traditional Xhosa beadwork with extravagant patterns. Some of them they were made with leather, and most of the pieces were actually collected from community members by anthropologists. Some of the beadwork actually dated from the 1800s. I was overwhelmed when I saw these pieces, because I've never seen these kind of pieces in my life. And unfortunately, this type of content we didn't have it when I was in high school as part of the curriculum. So it was sort of something new to me that I went out more and researched and found out that within the Xhosa culture, each clan had a color scheme and pattern designs which were they preferred, and styles that they actually developed. It sort of gave me design possibilities to actually create as much style as I can. Some of the skirts that the women wore in the olden days were actually elaborately decorated, and now we don't get these kind of decoration techniques. because they take too long to make. And I found these patterns, motifs fascinating, and I took pictures. And let me note that the beadwork, actually, I thought it was the right subject matter for me, because knitwear, we work with a lot of pixels. And what if when I zoom into the beadwork, I get the same kind of effect, which sort of, when I translate it into knitwear design, it sort of has the same kind of essence. So I could capture the designs, and I had to actually pick up some of the colors and actually interpret them so that they would look like traditional Xhosa colors. And these are the few motifs that I actually developed from the beadwork. So I got the motifs. Now it was time to actually develop the motifs to knitwear designs, typical motifs like the chevron, which is quite common, and the X, and the three other ones were actually original ones that I actually developed, but I had to play around them to make unique designs and apply some colors as well. This was the first design that I made, and for instance, if you look at the inspiration there, like the texture of the beadwork, I've sort of applied it in one of the panels that actually goes down there is the blue. And I looked on the images, anthropology images, to sort of replicate that kind of look, so that when the person looks at it, they actually get that kind of feel that this is extravagant, this is cultural, but yet modern. I can relate to it. It looks beautiful. And this is the second design that I made. I sort of use the same application on every design, and some of the motifs recur in different designs. For instance, this particular design, I used texture from traditional Xhosa dish called Ngxokolo, which is very common food that people in the Xhosa territory eat. And X design, I took some motifs from the sticks that people use as functional objects. And sleeveless V-neck was sort of like from the design on the left of the beadwork. I interpreted into the beadwork, and this was the initial collection that I developed from the concept that I made, and I had to knit them myself, so they weren't technically the way that I wanted them to be, but the design at least came out the way that I wanted. And we have to actually pose as Xhosa initiates. These are not Xhosa initiates. We couldn't find men who were willing enough, because once you go through that stage, you don't want to go back. People look at it as a taboo. So I had to pay my friends to come and pose for me. That's me on the left-hand side. And so I entered the SDC competition and won the nationals and went to the international leg in London in 2010, and I won that as well, which was a good stepping stone for me to actually expose my design to other markets as well, to actually see what the response would be. After the whole experience, I had to graduate and leave varsity, and so I had to find a job. It was quite a stressful process because there aren't a lot of textile jobs in South Africa. The industry is deteriorating at a fast rate, and it's depressing a lot of designers. So I thought, okay, let me be my mother and try to be an entrepreneur. It's either I take a job or be an entrepreneur and take a risk. So I approached the university and said to them, could you please, can I hire a space and make a studio and try to actually establish a career? I know this has never been done before, but I want to try it out, and they were convinced. And fortunately, during that time, I got invited to speak at the Design Labo in 2011, and they were overwhelmed about that because they never had a student who was invited to speak there. And so I was lucky enough. And they gave me a studio. They even gave me seed capital, so I could hire a few ladies from my local community and actually taught them how to knit. It frustrating process. Knitting is quite a difficult skill. I've been knitting for about 10 years, and I had experience, but with the ladies, knitting, it takes quite long. You can make, a jersey can take maybe about 2,000 rows, and by the time you get half year, you make 1,000 rows, and then one of the ladies makes a mistake, and then the piece falls down. She has to start all over again. And I decided, perhaps in the beginning, I need to outsource my production. I was based in Port Elizabeth, and Port Elizabeth doesn't have a design infrastructure. There isn't a good spirit for design. Most of the people there are consumer-minded. So I had to make a decision to actually move to Cape Town, where there's a lot of factories to outsource from, and a lot of dye houses that could dye the yarn that I wanted. So I had to think about establishing a brand and sort of think about what I do carefully, because I had no brand to look up to in South Africa, because most of the designers actually make very cosmopolitan clothes, and they don't focus on culture, because locals see it as very old-fashioned to take inspiration from culture and reinterpret it into modern clothes. So for me, it was sort of like taking a risk, because if I had to present my garments to the cosmopolitan South African market, they would be like, no, we don't trust this. We wear Paul Smith, we wear And so I decided to call my brand Xhosa by Laduma, because I felt that most of the inspiration for my work comes from the Xhosa. And the ladies that actually made the beadwork, I saw them as artisans. Making beadwork is difficult. One would actually make some pieces take about 1,000 beads, and by the time you're halfway, you have to unravel again because you made a mistake somewhere, you know. So I felt that I need to honor them and establish a heritage brand which the future generation can perhaps go back to and say, actually, we had quite an astonishing culture, and this is something that comes from here at home, and we should embrace it. And in 2012, I decided to launch my first collection, so I had to extend the current 5 pieces that I had and make 5 more pieces. Unfortunately, I got invited to showcase my first collection at an emerging designer show in London, and it felt sort of awkward for me because I never did a show in South Africa before. And so I took the opportunity and went there and showcased my first collection. And I had to learn about the industry as well, because I never worked for a company before, and I didn't have experience in the commercial knitwear design industry. And so I got my first order from my customer in Cape Town, because when I did the presentation at the designing lab, I got a lot of people that wanted to buy. So I thought, great. I delivered my first order, and I thought that, okay, it would be a good start to start home before looking abroad. And 2013, I had to come up with a new collection, which was sort of different to what I initially did. A lot of people ask me, okay, you've established something now. What's the next step? Are you going to go to Kenya and look at the Messiah for inspiration? I said, no, I'm going to still look at what I do and perhaps come up with something different and create a new spirit or whatever. And 2013, I was in a different mindset, and at that time I was thinking about my late mother and how actually my work has progressed from where we began, and actually thought, my heritage is my inheritance. That statement came up when I was working, and a friend of mine said that as well, you know, so I thought this is the right thing for the collection. And because I felt that my heritage was the best inheritance that I got from my mother, more than anything that she left behind. So this is the collection that I did, and this was about 10 years after she passed away. And my mother she loved Paris, she loved the French. She used to buy a lot of books and and called West Africans to come and teach us French, but we couldn't take it. And this is some of the pieces that I showed. And currently I did a collection, launched a collection for this year called Welembo, where I sort of try to imagine how the Xhosa people actually looked before they were colonized.
I'm so sorry, Lily, because it's so enjoyable, and because of the time. So can you speak? Let's get a little bit, and also I know you want to show film, so we won't do any questions, but if you just quickly take through and show the film, that'd be great. Thank you.
Wow.
So I had to launch a women's collection because the women love my knitwear as well.
Amazing.
And I made some songs as well. I collaborated with a company that makes mohair rugs based in Port Elizabeth. They manufacture in South Africa. Very beautiful, and I had there's this young guy that I'm mentoring at varsity who liked what I did, so I made a design, and actually he did a beadwork design on an iPhone cover. And I currently did a collaboration with a company that makes ceramic tile panels. What design did, for me, I think it sort of refreshed the culture and offered a modern appeal that draws the past and restored cultural pride as well. And I sort of established a niche market that adds value to the supply chain of the mohair and wool industry in Port Elizabeth. And these are some of the response that I get from people who actually see my knitwear in South Africa. On the bottom left there is Brahim Masekele, a very awesome jazz player. And my vision is to actually achieve commercial success that would grow local textile and innovate more products, preserve and share local stories about Xhosa heritage and revitalize cultural pride. And I will show a short film.
And also, where can we find you?
You can go to my website, maxhosa.co.za, and look at the collection in there, but I do have a small pieces with me. Yay! Thank you very much.
Ubona ntoni? Ndibona indoda, uhlobo indoda ekufaneleke ikhangeleke ngayo. Kwizithethe zakwantu, ukuba indoda unyanzelekile uye esuthwini. Ndoda leyo ke kunyanzelekile yaluke. Lowo ke umgaqo ekufuneka uhanjwe. Ezantsi emnyameni yindedwa endlini yokuphila. Ugagana nenjalo. Thande imoya yaye iziqhelanisa nezinyanya zakho. Kukho ezinye iintsuku zokucinga ukuba uza kuya emathunzini okufa. Abangaphumelelanga bangene kuqondo lwezinyanya. Akukho kuphila ngaphandle kohlaselwa zintlungu. Kuphela kwembici endinayo nale ngubo yam ehlathini ndafundiswa ukuba akho mntu uthwalela ubundoda. Ndafunda ukuba kufuneka uzithethelele xa uyindoda. Ndafunda ngembeko kwisiqu sakho nakwabanye abantu. Ndafunda ukuphakamisa uxanduva lwam. Usapho lwam ibe ngelona linexabiso kum kwakunye nabanye abantu, ngoba umntu ngumntu ngabantu. Ndaxelelwa ukuba mandibe lilizwi kwabo bangakwazi ukuzithethela. Ndafunda ukuba likhakha, ndibe nokuqiniseka kuzo zonke iziphumo ezenzekayo. Ndiqiniseke kwizwi endilithethayo, ndiqhayise ngembilini ululutho kwabaphezulu kuwe. Yiba sisithunywa sesithethe. Nenkcubeko yakho ndiyindoda yekamva eliphambi kwethu, kwaye esi sisinxibo esithetha ngam. NdinguLaduma Ngxokolo, unyana wamambono, othahla, ondayeni, osiqelekazi, ongqongqosha, ohlamba ububele. This is my heritage. This is my inheritance.